On a frontier world, a lone human saved an alien woman, but her people's ancient bond would tie their fates far beyond desire and into war. The story starts here. Alex Hudson had always hated alien marketplaces, but Outpost Helios was on a different level of miserable. The stench hit him first, an oily cocktail of sour alien sweat, rotting starfruit, chemical lubricants, animal musk, and something he couldn't identify but suspected came from a creature with too many digestive systems. The noise came second, 1,000 overlapping sales pitches in a dozen untranslated languages, some spoken, some shrieked, some transmitted telepathically by vendors too lazy to switch to vocalization. Last came the crowd, a shifting mass of limbs, tendrils, carapaces, feathers, translucent wings, and a few species that moved with joint articulations that made his bones ache just to look at. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward, adjusting the strap of his tool bag across his shoulder. His worn leather gloves creaked as he tightened his grip, instinctively checking for the comforting weight of his emergency hatchet buckled at his hip. His dark gray work jacket felt too warm under the harsh, almost ultraviolet glare of Helios's overhead lamps, and every new smell made him wish the purification filters on his mask still worked. But he didn't have the luxury of retreating, not today. When your industrial laser axe, the only thing standing between you and starvation on a frontier world, decided to fry its power cell in the middle of a cutting run, you didn't get to be choosy about where to shop. He stepped over a puddle of something glowing faint blue and hoped it wasn't alive. The dusty ground beneath him trembled slightly with the footfalls of a giant, quadrupedal alien hauling crates of ore. Alex had lived through 3 years on this planet, felling trees manually and hauling lumber to outposts for credits. But this place still made his skin crawl. Civilization, not the polished, shining one promised in recruitment flyers, but the dirty, desperate, opportunistic version that sprang up around frontier trade hubs. That was the part of the galaxy he had tried to escape. And yet, here he was. Timber cutter, a gravelly voice croaked in broken standard, slicing through the cacophony like a knife. Strong human needs strong tools. Alex turned instinctively, narrowing his eyes at the short, green-skinned alien waving him over from a cluttered stall. The merchant's appearance was unsettling even by Helios standards. Unnervingly smooth skin without pores, narrow golden eyes that blinked sideways instead of vertically, and thin lips that stretched too wide when he smiled, as if he were mimicking the expression rather than understanding it. "Name's Krex," the alien said, gesturing frantically with elongated fingers. "Krex helps human. Krex has what human needs. Best quality, fair price." Alex doubted any part of that sentence was true. Still, he approached. Helios had only so many merchants selling industrial-grade tools, and he had exhausted most of the options already. Maybe this Krex had a model compatible with his outdated M01 chassis. "I need a new laser axe, industrial grade," Alex said, tapping the empty holster at his belt. "My M01's power cell is shot." Krex's strange smile widened. "Better than laser axe. Much better deal for strong human." Alex sighed. "Not interested in a deal. I need a..." Krex gestured sharply toward the corner of his stall. Alex followed his gaze and froze. A figure crouched in the shadows, wrapped in a filthy sack from head to mid-torso, thin arms bound at the wrists with rough cord. The legs beneath the sack were trembling, bare feet dusty and bruised. The rags covering the lower half of the figure barely qualified as clothing. Alex felt a cold weight slam into the pit of his stomach. "What the hell is that?" he demanded, his tone dropping into a growl he hadn't used since the colonial wars. "Goblin slave," Krex said dismissively, waving a hand as though describing a used appliance. "Very rare, very valuable, good worker, no complaint." Alex, "Tools break," Krex argued. "Slave work many years, no protest, very efficient." Alex turned to leave. He wasn't about to support any form of trafficking, Not after the horrors he'd seen during the war. Not after swearing never again to stand by while someone suffered. But as his boots scraped against the metal flooring, he saw the figure flinch violently at Crex's movement, a tiny, terrified reflex, like a wounded animal expecting a blow. Something he had come to this world to escape people, and somehow still couldn't stop himself from being one. He exhaled sharply. How much? Crex, impossible. Alex crossed his arms. 1 month, and you throw in a basic laser axe, industrial grade. 15 agonizing minutes of haggling later, during which Crex tried every dirty trick in the book and invented 3 new ones. Alex found himself walking away from the stall with a battered but functional laser axe strapped to his transport, and the trembling, sack-covered figure following behind him. He felt dirty, worse than dirty, compromised. The ride back to his cabin was long and silent. His rugged, all-terrain vehicle rumbled over uneven terrain, kicking up plumes of ochre dust. Beside him, the bound figure sat rigid, emitting occasional whimpers that cut straight through Alex's usually impenetrable emotional armor. He kept glancing over, torn between wanting to offer reassurance and not wanting to frighten them further. He'd fought slavers before. He'd seen what happened to people stripped of autonomy and treated like property. Leaving this person with Crex would have been worse than doing nothing. But that didn't make the situation easier. His cabin finally appeared between the towering pines, solid, sturdy, built by his own hands. Actual wood walls, reinforced beams, a chimney puffing lazy smoke into the crisp air. It was the one place in the galaxy that felt like home. He parked the transport beside the woodpile and helped the bound figure down. They flinched at his touch but didn't resist. Small mercies. Inside, warm lamplights softened the room. Thick rugs, shelves full of preserved food, the faint hum of his auto-cook finishing supper. He guided the figure to the center of the room. "I'm going to take this off," he said gently, reaching for the rope around the sack. "I'm not going to hurt you." The figure trembled uncontrollably. Slowly, very slowly, Alex loosened the knot. The sack came free, sliding upward. He froze. His breath caught. Not a goblin, not a slave species. A woman, a humanoid woman with soft, pale green skin that seemed to glow faintly in the lamplight. Large, almond-shaped amber eyes stared at him, wide with terror. Her features were delicate, high cheekbones, a small nose, lips trembling with barely restrained panic. Long, silvery hair spilled over her shoulders like strands of liquid metal. Her hands, bound tightly with rope, were elegant, long-fingered, trembling as she tried to cover her torn, gray garment. Around her neck was a thin, metallic collar, blinking with tiny lights. "Holy shit," Alex whispered. The woman flinched hard, pressing against the cabin wall like a cornered animal. Alex raised both hands quickly. "I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." She stared at him, breathing fast and shallow. He reached slowly into his belt pouch for his utility knife. "I'm going to cut the ropes, okay?" The woman tensed, then hesitantly extended her bound wrists. Alex worked with careful precision, sawing through the coarse rope until it snapped free. She rubbed her wrists, red, raw, bruised, and watched him warily with those huge amber eyes. "My name is Alex," he said, tapping his chest. "Alex Hudson." A long moment passed. Then, in a voice like chimes in the wind, melodic, cautious, beautiful, she whispered, "Ilasa. I am called Ilasa." Alex exhaled softly. Everything had just changed. Alex hadn't expected the silence in his cabin to feel so heavy. It pressed in on him like a physical weight, thickening the air as he stood a careful distance from the green-skinned woman now sitting rigidly on the edge of his couch. She kept her knees drawn close to her chest, hands folded protectively in her lap, shoulders tense beneath the soft blanket he'd wrapped around her. Her silvery hair fell in uneven waves, still tangled from being held under the filthy sack for who knew how long. He wasn't sure what unsettled him more, her fear or the realization that she had every reason to be afraid. Ilasa. Her name echoed in his mind, fragile and musical. He stepped into the kitchen area and busied himself with the auto cook, pretending he needed to adjust the temperature when really he just needed to breathe. His heart was beating too fast, a reaction he tried to chalk up to adrenaline rather than the impossible beauty seated just a few meters away. When he returned with a steaming mug of herbal infusion, she flinched again. Less violently this time, but enough that he slowed his pace. "It's just tea," he said softly. "Safe for humans. I don't know if it's safe for you, so don't drink if you're unsure." She stared at the mug, then at him, then back at the mug. After several long seconds, she gave the faintest shake of her head. "Not safe," she whispered. Alex nodded and set the mug aside. "Okay, no tea." The fire crackled quietly in the stone hearth, filling the cabin with warm, orange light. For a while, neither of them spoke. Ilasa seemed to be studying everything: the furniture, the ceiling beams, the carved wooden shelves, even the soft hum of the power cells in the walls. She looked like someone trying to relearn the meaning of safety. Her hands were still trembling. "Are you cold?" Alex asked. She hesitated, then shook her head again. "Not cold, only uncertain." He sank into his chair across from her, resting his elbows on his knees. "You don't have to be scared of me." "You purchased me," she replied quietly, a statement rather than an accusation. "I bought you out," he corrected firmly. "There's a difference." Her amber eyes flickered. "Is there?" "Yeah," he said, voice rougher than he'd intended. "There is." He didn't look away. He wanted her to see the truth in his expression, even if she could probably sense it telepathically. Or maybe not. He didn't know the range or capability of her species yet. "All I wanted was a tool," he admitted. "A damn laser axe. But when I saw you there, bound like that, shaking like that, leaving you felt like letting something evil win." She didn't respond, but her gaze softened just enough for him to draw a breath that didn't feel like sand scraping his throat. After a long moment, she lifted her hands slowly, as if afraid he might interpret the motion as aggression. Her fingers touched the metallic collar around her neck. "This binds more than my body," she murmured. Alex leaned forward. "Does it hurt you?" "No, it suppresses, limits, controls." Her fingers traced the blinking lights. "It prevents communication, dampens thought, restrains ability." "Telepathy?" he asked. She stiffened, but nodded faintly. "I won't try to remove it," he said quickly. "Not until we know how it works. But we'll figure something out." Her brows knit slightly, as though she didn't understand why he cared. He'd seen that expression on refugees before. People conditioned to expect cruelty over kindness. "You hungry?" he asked gently. Her posture tightened again, but she gave a small nod. He prepared a simple meal: scrambled eggs, toasted bread, and a small portion of rehydrated vegetables. Human food wasn't gourmet, but it was warm and safe. He set the plate in front of her at the small wooden table. She stared at it as though it were a puzzle. "Try a little," he said. "If anything tastes wrong, stop." With clear hesitation, she picked up the fork. Her grip was awkward at first, like she wasn't used to utensils. She took a careful bite of the eggs. Her eyes widened slightly. "This is pleasant," she whispered. Alex couldn't help smiling, glad to hear it. She took another bite, bigger this time, then another. Bit by bit, her tension eased. Her shoulders lowered. Her breathing steadied. Her hands stopped trembling quite so much. He watched her eat, not out of intimidation or suspicion, but fascination. For the first time since he'd removed the sack, she looked genuinely alive. When the plate was clean, she rested her palms flat against the wooden table and inhaled deeply, as if stabilizing herself. Alex took the chance. "Ilasa," he said quietly, "who are you? How did you end up with Krex?" Her eyes dimmed instantly. "It is a long story. We've got time." She hesitated as though debating whether to trust him with the truth. Then, very slowly, she touched her collar again, fingers gliding over the metal as if weighing each word. "I am Alasa Vashari," she said, "daughter of Ambassador Talon of the Lumidari Conclave." Alex blinked. Hard. "That's a big title." She gave the faintest, bitter smile. "My father represents our people in the Galactic Assembly. I was traveling with him to the Centauri conference when our vessel was attacked." A cold knot formed in Alex's stomach. "Raiders?" "Yes, they boarded the diplomatic ship. They killed members of the escort. Others they took alive." Her voice thinned, trembling on the edges of memory. "I was restrained, drugged, moved between ships, sold twice, each time worse." Alex swallowed hard, rage smoldering behind his ribs. "Why capture a diplomat's daughter?" he asked. "Ransom?" She shook her head. "No, my people are distinct. We sense emotions, thoughts. Some of us are trained to influence them. A rare ability, dangerous in wrong hands." "Telepaths," he murmured. "A crude human term," she said softly, "but not inaccurate." Alex leaned back in his chair. He'd heard rumors of species like hers, ancient civilizations with natural, empathic abilities. But seeing one up close, that was different. "How long were you held?" he asked gently. "3 standard months," she replied. "The one called Krex obtained me most recently. He feared me, covered me, sedated me." Her lips pressed together. "He believed I was cursed." Alex's jaw clenched. "Bastard." Alasa studied him quietly, amber eyes faintly luminous in the lamplight. "You speak as though my suffering angers you." "It does." He didn't sugarcoat it. "No one deserves what happened to you." She tilted her head slightly, as though examining a rare specimen. "Humans are complex," he snorted. "You're not wrong." Her gaze fell to his hands, scarred from years of chopping wood, repairing machinery, and surviving on the edge of civilization. Her eyes lingered on the calluses, the faint burns, the healed cuts. "You have fought," she said softly. "Yeah," Alex replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "Colonial wars, long time ago." "You left your people," she said, "to live alone." "That obvious?" She nodded. "You carry solitude like a cloak." He didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. Instead, he stood. "You should rest. Take my bed. I'll use the couch." Her eyes widened with alarm. "No, you do not need to." "Ilasa," he said firmly, "you're exhausted, underfed, and recovering from trauma. You take the bed." She didn't argue again. He led her to the bedroom. The sheets were clean, the mattress firm, the blankets thick. She hovered in the doorway for several moments, as though unsure whether she was allowed to cross the threshold. Finally, she stepped inside. "Thank you," she whispered. Alex paused. "For what?" "For treating me as someone, not something." His chest tightened painfully. "You're welcome." He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, her voice, soft as a breeze, stopped him. "Alex." He looked back. "Am I safe here?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said, "you're safe." She studied him for a moment longer, as though listening not to his words, but the emotional resonance beneath them. Then she nodded, slipped beneath the blankets, and closed her eyes. Alex shut the door gently behind him. As he sank onto the couch, staring up at the wooden ceiling beams, he realized the truth hitting him like a log to the gut. His life, his solitude, his quiet routine had just exploded, and tomorrow, everything would get even stranger. Morning came softly, creeping into the cabin in golden sheets of light that stretched across the wooden floorboards. Alex had barely slept. The couch wasn't the problem. He'd slept on worse surfaces in the colonial wars. What kept him awake was the occasional rustle from the bedroom, the quiet sound of movement that reminded him, again and again, that he wasn't alone anymore. A presence unlike anything he'd ever encountered was lying in his bed, a presence who had looked at him with terror and trust. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes and pushed himself upright. The cabin felt different, warmer somehow, despite the cool morning breeze seeping through the window cracks. He checked on the auto cook, brewed himself something resembling coffee, and tried not to think about how bizarre the last 12 hours had been. As he poured the drink, he heard the door hinge creak. Ilasa emerged slowly, wrapped in the blanket still draped over her shoulders, her silvery hair falling in a shimmering curtain down her back. Even with exhaustion clinging to her posture, she moved with an unearthly grace. Her amber eyes swept the cabin cautiously before settling on him. She looked less frightened than last night, but no less alert. "Good morning," Alex said softly. She hesitated. "Morning is pleasant here." Her voice was quieter than before, fragile but steady. "You sleep okay?" he asked, grabbing a pan and cracking a few eggs. "I did not dream," she said, lowering herself carefully into a chair. "That is unusual. Good or bad?" She considered the question. Perhaps both. He tried not to smile too much as he set breakfast in front of her. She examined the plate again as if it were some strange artifact, but this time she didn't hesitate to take a bite. Her shoulders relaxed almost instantly. "Better than yesterday," she admitted. "That's the goal." She watched him for several seconds as he sat across from her with his mug. There was something openly curious in her gaze, observing his movements, his expression, even how he breathed. When her eyes drifted to his hands, lingering on the faint scars again, he cleared his throat. "So," he said, "I figured maybe today I can show you around the area. Just the safe parts. You'll probably feel better seeing where you actually are." Her eyebrow lifted slightly. "You assume I will remain here," he shrugged. "Well, yeah, until we figure out our next steps." She tilted her head, studying the sincerity behind his words. Then she nodded. "I would like to see." The forest around Alex's cabin was one of the few places on the planet that he genuinely loved. Morning sunlight filtered through the tall pines, casting shifting patterns across the moss and ferns. Bird-like creatures flitted between branches, chirping in tones that sounded almost metallic. A breeze carried the earthy smell of sap and soil. Ilasa stepped outside cautiously, blinking as the light hit her skin. The pale green of her complexion seemed to glow faintly, reflecting the sunlight instead of absorbing it. "This world is quiet," she said. "That's why I came here." She looked at him with a small, almost puzzled expression. Humans often seek noise, distraction. "I've had enough noise for a lifetime." He led her along a small trail marked by stones. She walked barefoot. She insisted shoes felt restrictive and moved lightly, barely bending the grass beneath her steps. Alex, on the other hand, left deep prints in the earth with his heavy boots. The contrast wasn't lost on him. "What is that?" she asked suddenly, pointing to a row of small wooden stakes lining the trail. "Boundary markers," Alex explained. "Mostly for me so I don't wander too far when I'm tired or distracted." "You require reminders?" she asked, sounding genuinely intrigued. "Sometimes," he said, "humans aren't as graceful as your people." She considered that. "I have observed." Her tone was so serious that Alex let out a short, startled laugh. After a moment, Ilasa's lips curved ever so slightly. Not a full smile, but the shadow of one. Progress. They came to his work area, an open clearing where chopped logs lay neatly stacked and tools hung from a storage rack. The manual axe was wedged in a stump, gleaming dully in the morning light. Ilasa approached it slowly, touching the wooden handle with 2 fingers. "You do this without automation?" "Yep, backup work. Manual means reliable." "You choose the harder path," she said thoughtfully, "even when easier options exist." "Gives me something to do," Alex said, scratching the back of his neck. "And I guess it feels honest. You put in effort, you get reward. Simple." She didn't answer for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. "My people do not value simplicity. We value clarity, harmony, efficiency. Emotions complicate these things." He raised a brow. "Are emotions considered a weakness?" "Not weakness," she corrected gently. "Dangerous, powerful, unpredictable." Alex felt a wry smile tug at his mouth. Humans specialize in unpredictable. Yes, she said, meeting his gaze with unsettling intensity. I am learning that. She turned her attention back to the axe. May I try? Alex blinked. You mean split a log? She nodded, expression earnest. It's heavy, he warned. I will try. He handed her the axe carefully. It sagged in her grip, her slender arms straining beneath the weight. She adjusted her hands, copying his posture exactly, but her stance was wrong, her center of balance too high. Here, he said, stepping behind her. She froze for a heartbeat, back straightening. I'm just gonna guide your hands, he said quickly, not wanting to frighten her. She exhaled slowly, a signal of permission. He placed his hands over hers. Her skin was warm, warmer than a human's, and impossibly smooth. The moment he touched her, a faint hum vibrated against his palms, like energy flowing just beneath her skin. Relax your shoulders, he murmured. Lower your stance. Feet apart. Good. She followed every instruction with meticulous focus. Now when you swing, don't just use your arms, use your hips. Think of it like letting the weight fall, not forcing it. Her breath brushed his cheek as she turned her head slightly. Like this, she whispered. He realized their faces were only inches apart. Yeah, he said, voice far too quiet. She brought the axe down, not perfectly, but with enough force to crack the log slightly. She looked surprised at the result. You did great, Alex said. She looked up at him, really looked at him, and something flickered between them. A warmth, a pull, a connection that had nothing to do with telepathy. They stood like that for several seconds before she spoke. Your emotions, she said softly, they resonate strongly. He swallowed. Is that bad? She shook her head, her silvery hair shimmering. It is overwhelming, but not unwelcome. Alex stepped back a little, giving her space and himself room to breathe. Come on, he said gruffly. Let's head back. It's almost midday. That night, they sat by the fireplace. The flames danced in the hearth, casting golden light over the room. Outside, the forest hummed with alien night songs, gentle and rhythmic. Ilasa sat cross-legged on the rug, wrapped again in the blanket, her hair glowing softly in the firelight. Alex sat in his usual chair, nursing a drink. He wasn't sure when the silence between them had stopped feeling awkward and started feeling peaceful. Alex, she said suddenly. He glanced at her. Yeah? In your culture, she said carefully, what constitutes a mating ritual? He nearly dropped his drink. What? He sputtered. She tilted her head. You feel attraction. I sense it. It resonates with my own. I wish to understand your customs. Alex set his glass down a little too hard. Ilasa, you've been through trauma. I don't want to take advantage of anything you're feeling. Her gaze didn't change, but her voice did. It grew softer, warmer. In my culture, she said, shifting closer, connection, emotional and physical, is healing. It anchors us. It restores balance after darkness. Her hand reached out, lightly resting on his. I choose this. I choose you. He felt the breath leave his lungs. Ilasa, I don't even know if we're compatible. She smiled gently. There is only one way to know the truth. Her eyes, molten gold in the firelight, held his completely. And in that moment, Alex realized something frightening and wonderful. His solitude was already gone. His life, irrevocably intertwined with hers. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. For a moment, neither of them moved. The fire crackled softly, filling the cabin with the scent of resin and charred wood. Outside, the forest sang in distant whispers. But inside Alex Hudson's small wooden home, the world had narrowed to the space between them. Small, warm, electric. Ilasa's hand remained on top of his, her fingers impossibly light yet carrying a gravity he could feel all the way down to his chest. Her amber eyes held no fear now, only something searching, open, and deeply sincere. Alex swallowed, trying to steady himself. Ilasa, I don't want to push you into anything. You don't owe me. I know, she said softly, and there was no hesitation in her voice. You have given me no reason to fear you. That alone is rare. He felt something twist in his chest, something protective, fierce. She exhaled slowly, as if centering herself. Among my people, closeness of mind is considered the highest form of connection. Higher than touch, higher than speech. It requires trust. It requires vulnerability. Alex's brows knit. Mind connection? Like telepathy? Deeper, she whispered. Telepathy is listening. Connection is sharing. Two minds, equal. Her gaze softened. If you wish, I can show you. The firelight flickered, casting shifting shadows across her green skin. He hesitated because a part of him feared what she would see inside him. The wars, the blood, the loneliness he carried like a second skin. But Alasa was watching him with so much trust that he felt shame at doubting himself. Okay, he said quietly, show me. She shifted from the rug to kneel in front of him. Their knees brushed, causing a jolt of warmth to shoot through him. She raised both hands and cupped his temples with astonishing gentleness. Her palms were warm, almost too warm, and he could feel a faint vibration beneath her skin, like a pulse that wasn't entirely physical. Close your eyes, she whispered. Breathe with me. Her voice was a melody he didn't know he had been waiting to hear. Alex inhaled deeply. So did she. Their breaths synchronized, slow and steady. Each inhale felt connected, each exhale aligned. Then the world tilted. At first, it was subtle, like falling half asleep and floating in the space between dreams and waking life. But then sensation expanded outward, blooming through his mind like ripples across still water. Warmth surged through his spine, radiating outward. His awareness stretched, thinned, and then fused with something impossibly vast. Suddenly, he wasn't alone in his own head. Images burst around him. Twin moons hanging in a lavender sky, a crystalline city that shimmered in perpetual twilight, a chorus of voices humming in a harmonized mental symphony. He felt Ilasa's childhood memories, her running through tall, shimmering grasses with other young Lumidari, her laughter ringing like wind chimes. He felt her father's presence, calm, commanding, a mind like a polished stone. Then the memories shifted. Darkness, metal restraints, cold floors, a ship that smelled of chemicals and fear, hands grabbing her, voices shouting in harsh, foreign words. The sense of being torn from her home, ripped not from a place, but from a network of minds she'd been connected to since birth. Alex's hands clenched without meaning to. But as he felt her terror, Elasa did something extraordinary. She reached back into him, not to drown him in her pain, but to soothe, to share warmth, to counter each memory of fear with a memory of belonging. Then she drifted deeper, into him. He felt her explore the quiet places he never shared with anyone. The hopelessness of the colonial wars, the smell of burned soil after artillery fire, the weight of holding dying comrades, the crushing silence of returning to a civilian world that no longer felt like his. The moment he looked at a frontier map and decided to disappear into the wilderness because he didn't recognize who he was anymore, she saw all of it. And instead of recoiling, she wrapped around his mind like gentle light. You carry so much, she whispered, not with sound but with thought. And yet you endure. You keep choosing compassion. He felt his breath hitch. Her presence expanded, warmth, empathy, gratitude, and something deeper, something blooming like a flower unfurling its petals toward the sun. Desire. Not physical at first, though that followed quickly, but emotional. A raw, vulnerable craving for closeness, for safety, for trust. Their bodies leaned into each other naturally, instinctively, as their minds twined in luminous spirals. Her lips brushed his, soft, curious, trembling. Alex responded without thinking, cupping her face as though she were fragile crystal. Their kiss deepened, slow, reverent, full of discovery. It felt less like touching her body and more like touching her spirit. For a long time, they stayed locked in that shared warmth, mind to mind, breath to breath, heartbeats sinking until he could not tell where he ended and she began. Eventually, the bond softened, settling into a quiet hum at the edge of their thoughts. Ilasa rested her forehead against his chest, breath unsteady. "You feel deeply," she murmured, her voice vibrating softly against him. "Your emotions radiate like heat." "And you," he said, stroking her hair with surprising tenderness, "are the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me." She lifted her head slightly, her amber eyes glowing faintly, even more vibrant than before. The moment should have lasted forever. It didn't. A sharp, piercing alarm blared from the wall console. Alex jerked upright. Ilasa tensed instantly, eyes going wide with panic. Alex rushed to the panel. The readout flashed in angry red. Unregistered vehicles approaching. Fast. "Damn it," Hu muttered. "Two hovercraft, coming from the trading post." Ilasa's breath caught. "They've found me." Alex didn't hesitate. "We need to go." She clutched at her collar, eyes wide. "I felt something. When we connected. The collar, it pulsed. It may have sent a signal." "Of course it did," Alex growled. He grabbed his pulse rifle from the wall mount and tossed Ilasa her blanket. "Get dressed, quickly." She obeyed, slipping into cleaner, better-fitting clothes he had laid out earlier. Simple fabric, but soft and warm. Her hands trembled as she pulled them on. Alex scanned the map. "If we run for the forest, they can track us from the air. We need somewhere underground." Ilasa's expression sharpened. "The mines?" "Yes," he said. "Old mining tunnels. They run for kilometers beneath the forest. Hard to navigate, impossible to scan." He grabbed a pack with supplies, slung it over his shoulder, then helped Ilasa into her boots. She winced at the sensation, her feet unaccustomed to them, but didn't protest. He caught her chin gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You stay with me, always within reach, no matter what." She nodded, fear mixing with something like trust. "I will not lose you." Her words hit him harder than they should have. He took her hand, she squeezed tighter than expected, and they slipped out the cabin's back door just as the distant growl of engines broke through the treetops. The forest swallowed them quickly, branches brushing their shoulders as Alex led the way with practiced confidence. Ilasa kept close, breathing lightly, her movements quiet but urgent. They reached a half-buried metal hatch concealed by fallen leaves and thick vines. Alex knelt, ripped the vegetation free, and pulled the hatch open with a groaning, metallic shriek. A dark maintenance shaft yawned beneath them. "Down," he said. "Fast." Ilasa didn't hesitate. She climbed into the shaft, boots clanging softly on the old ladder rungs. Alex followed, pulling the hatch shut behind them, just as the first hovercraft roared overhead. Darkness enveloped them, cool, damp, tinged with the scent of iron and minerals. Alex activated his multi-tools dim light, casting a narrow beam across the stone walls. Ilasa moved closer, her voice barely audible. "Alex, the bond. I can still feel you." He could feel her too, like a soft warmth in the back of his mind, steady and comforting. "Good," he said. "We're going to need it." They descended deeper into the earth. Above them, faint and distant, the sound of footsteps echoed through the forest. The hunters arriving at the cabin. Alex tightened his grip on the ladder. "We're not going back," he murmured. "And we're not being taken," Ilasa whispered fiercely. Their voices were swallowed by the dark. Deep underground, the escape had just begun. The tunnels swallowed them whole. As Alex and Ilasa reached the bottom of the maintenance shaft, the world above faded into nothing more than a distant echo. Muted engines, muffled voices, the faint hum of a searchlight sweeping across treetops. Down here, beneath the forest, the air grew colder, heavier. The mining complex had been abandoned 30 years earlier, sealed and forgotten, its systems left to rot in silence. Now, it felt like an iron throat closing around them. Alex swept his multi-tools beam across the cavernous space. Rusted support beams lined the walls. Overhead pipes dripped condensation onto the rocky floor, and ancient rail lines stretched into the darkness like skeletal veins. Elasa stepped closer to him unconsciously, her voice barely a whisper. "It feels like the world is holding its breath." "Good," Alex muttered. "Let it. Maybe it'll hold it long enough for those bastards to miss us." But he didn't believe it. Neither did she. The bond between them hummed with a faint thread of tension, her anxiety pulsing against his awareness, his determination echoing back to her. It wasn't telepathic communication, not exactly, but a steady, emotional tether. They moved deeper into the passage. "Stay close," Alex said. "These tunnels go on forever. Easy to get lost." "I am with you," she answered softly. Minutes stretched into an hour. The deeper they descended, the more claustrophobic the tunnels became. The air thickened with mineral dust, and every sound echoed: footsteps, shallow breaths, the occasional metallic creak of some ancient pipe under shifting pressure. Then Elasa stiffened. "Alex," she whispered. "Stop." He halted immediately. "What is it?" She closed her eyes. Someone entered the tunnels. 3 minds, focused, disciplined. Alex felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Shadow hunters?" "I believe so." Her voice trembled slightly. "Their minds are quiet, efficient, conditioned, cold." Alex tightened his hold on his pulse rifle. "Then they're close." They moved quietly now, every step deliberate. Alex kept scanning side passages, looking for anywhere they could hide, or at least funnel an ambush. The mine was a labyrinth, some tunnels wide as highways, others narrow as crawl spaces. Then, faint and distant, a metallic clatter echoed behind them. Elasa's grip tightened on his sleeve. "They are following us," Alex cursed under his breath. "We need to outmaneuver them," he whispered. "We can't outrun them, not down here." He scanned the walls, spotting a small side chamber up ahead. There, a break room. They used it for workers during shifts. He ushered her inside. The room was small, filled with dusty crates, overturned stools, and an old mining console flickering with a dying orange light. A single heavy door led deeper into a control center. Alex pointed at the doorway. "Inside, now." They slipped into the control room, the heavy metal door squealing softly as he pulled it almost entirely shut, just a thin crack left open to watch the outer room. The console screens were dead, their surfaces coated in dust thick enough to write on. The emergency generator in the corner was long decayed. Elasa moved close, her breath warm against his arm. "They are near." "How near?" She closed her eyes. "Within, perhaps 80 meters." Alex steadied his breathing. "Okay, we need a plan." He checked the charge on his pulse rifle. 1 full battery, 1 spare. Not enough if there were multiple elites. Elasa watched him carefully, her amber eyes wide with fear she tried to contain. "Alex," she whispered, "if they find us..." "They won't," he said. "Not if I can help it." She swallowed hard. The bond flickered with her fear, but also with something else. Trust. Alex peeked through the thin crack in the door. Darkness. Silence. Then, a whisper. A footstep. A faint scrape of a blade against stone. The shadow hunters had arrived. Elasa's breath hitched. Alex felt it through the bond. Sharp, icy, overwhelming. He reached back without looking and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back, grounding herself instantly. "It is one," she whispered. "The others are circling. A perfect hunting pattern." Alex exhaled slowly. "Okay. When he passes the doorway, I'll ambush him." Elasa's expression tightened with sudden urgency. "I can help. I can project emotion. Make him believe we fled deeper into the mines." "Do it." She closed her eyes. Her brow furrowed, and Alex felt a ripple in the air. A strange pressure, like static before a storm. Footsteps paused just outside. Then the figure moved, walking past their hiding spot, deeper into the tunnels. Alex waited, counted silently to 3. Then he moved. He kicked the door open and lunged. A dark, matte black armored figure spun in shock as Alex rammed the rifle butt into the back of its helmet. The alien staggered, but didn't fall. Too fast, too strong. The Dravari turned with unnatural grace, a Vero blade snapping into existence in his hand. Human, the alien hissed, voice modulated and cold. Primitive, predictable. Alex dodged the first strike by inches, dragging Elasa out of the doorway with him. "Elasa, stay back," he shouted. The shadow hunter lunged. Alex parried with the rifle barrel, sparks flying as energy edge met metal. The force nearly knocked him off his feet. The alien moved again, fluid, silent, terrifying. Alex swung low, aiming at its legs, but the alien sprang over the sweep like a dancer. A kick slammed into Alex's ribs, sending him crashing into the wall. Pain exploded through his side. "Alex!" Elasa cried, trying to run toward him. "Stay!" he gasped, forcing himself back to his feet. The Dravari turned its visor toward Elasa. The telepath, primary target. That snapped something in Alex. He lunged with raw, desperate strength. The Dravari raised its blade to slash, and suddenly it froze. Its limbs locked. Its spine stiffened. Every muscle paralyzed mid-motion. Behind him, Elasa stood rigid, hands raised, face contorted in effort. "I cannot hold him long," she gasped. "The collar, limits, reach." Alex wasted no time. He slammed into the alien, driving him to the ground. The helmet cracked against the stone floor. Alex wrestled the Vero blade free and tossed it aside. "Elasa," he shouted. "He's got disruptor cuffs." She nodded shakily. At his belt pouch, Alex yanked them free and snapped them around the alien's wrists. As soon as they activated, Elasa sagged against the wall, shaking with exhaustion. The alien's paralysis weakened, but didn't break. Still, he couldn't move enough to fight. Alex pulled off the helmet. The Dravari's face was narrow, sharp, skin ash gray, eyes entirely black and reflective. It stared at him with icy hatred. "You cannot escape," the Shadow Hunter said. "Others will find you. The data will be recovered." Alex forced his breathing to even out. "What data?" The alien's expression flickered, slightly amused. "Your deception is primitive." Elasa moved to kneel beside Alex, still breathing heavily. "Why frame my people?" she demanded. "Why infiltrate our diplomatic mission?" "For strategic advantage," the Dravari replied. "The Lumidari-Human alliance must be prevented. Your telepaths are inconvenient." Alex frowned. "So you kidnapped the ambassador's daughter, stuffed military plans into her collar, and hoped humans would blame her people?" "Correct." Alex stared. "That's sick, but effective," the alien said calmly, "until you interfered." Silence. Heavy. Elasa touched Alex's arm. "We must leave. His companions will sense his failure." The Dravari tilted his head. "They already know." Alex grabbed Elasa's hand and pulled her away. "Then we don't have much time." They left the bound alien, locked in the room. The tunnels seemed to pulse around them now, vibrating with distant footsteps. Faint, but approaching. "We need distance," Alex said. "Fast." Elasa nodded breathlessly. "I sense them. 2, maybe 3, moving to flank us." Alex scanned the passage. The rail line ahead split in 2. "We can't fight more of those things," he muttered. "We need a distraction." "Tracker," Elasa whispered. "The device you took off him." Alex blinked. "You're saying we send the tracker one direction, run the opposite way?" She nodded. "It will give us minutes." He kissed her forehead, quick, instinctive, full of adrenaline. "That's all we need." For the first time since entering the tunnels, Elasa smiled. Even in the gloom, it was radiant. "Lead the way, Alex," she said softly. "I will follow." And together, they plunged deeper into the labyrinth. chased by shadows, driven by hope. Their fight had only just begun. The tunnels trembled faintly as Alex and Alasa raced deeper into the abandoned mine network, their footsteps echoing along the rusted rails. Every breath Alex drew felt heavier, as if the very air had thickened with the knowledge that 3 Dravari elite soldiers were now hunting them through the darkness. Ilasa kept pace beside him, one hand always brushing his arm, as if to reassure herself, or to reassure him, that their bond was still there, still humming, still alive. "This way," Alex whispered, spotting a junction up ahead where 3 tunnels met. His beam of light cut across signs half swallowed by dust. "Processing Sector A, arrow. Store tunnels, arrow. Auxiliary power, arrow." He made a choice instantly. "We head for auxiliary power." Ilasa frowned. "Why? Should we not move upward? Toward the surface? If they're tracking you, the surface isn't safe, and we'll run straight into their scouts." He pointed upward at the old ventilation shaft. "Power stations got secondary systems, generators. If we can jumpstart them, it'll overload sensors, draw attention away from us, maybe collapse parts of the tunnels." Ilasa blinked. "Collapse? With us inside?" "Yes," Alex said bluntly, "but only the sections behind us." She stared at him for a heartbeat, then nodded. "Human strategies continue to surprise me." "That's the idea." They reached the power alcove, a narrow chamber carved out from the main tunnel, with thick copper cables snaking along the walls, and a dormant generator resting against a concrete platform. Its indicator lights were dead, panels were half torn out, dust clouded everything. Alex knelt beside it. "If I can reroute power from the reserve cells, just enough to fire up the start sequence." Ilasa placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice quiet. "I can sense movement." "How close?" "Close enough," Alex exhaled sharply. "Buying time, then." He grabbed his multi-tool, bypassed 2 circuits, rewired 1 charred terminal with a strip of conductive metal, then jammed the reserve power cell into the boot slot. Come on," he muttered. Ilasa's pulse spiked against his awareness. She stepped backward, eyes unfocusing as she reached out telepathically. "They are arguing. 2 want to follow the tracker. 1 does not." Alex grinned grimly. "Let's give them something bigger to worry about." He yanked the final lever. The generator roared to life, sputtering, groaning, coughing sparks, before finally catching in a thundering hum that vibrated the walls. Emergency lights flickered deep orange, sputtering in dusty corridors. Ventilation fans shuddered awake, blowing stale air in bursts. The old communication relays crackled weakly as ancient software attempted to reboot. Ilasa gasped. The Dravari mines, confusion. They believe the systems have detected seismic activity. They are changing course. Alex stood, grabbing her hand. "Then we run. Now." They sprinted back into the tunnel network, heading toward the far left passage that Alex knew led toward a secondary ladder system. The old rails rattled under their feet as the generator's vibrations spread. Dust rained from overhead support beams. Ilasa stumbled slightly as her collar pulsed with faint light. Pain flashed across her face. "That signal again?" Alex asked. "Yes," she hissed. "When systems activate, the collar reacts. I do not know why." "Not good," he muttered. "Save your strength. We're almost there." But the tunnels didn't seem to share his optimism. A loud, violent tremor shook the passage. A deep rumbling thundered overhead, as though something massive had just shifted in the rock layers above them. "Alex," Ilasa whispered, voice trembling. "The structure, it is unstable." "I know," he said through clenched teeth. "But we'll reach the ladder before..." Another tremor cut him off. This one was stronger. The overhead pipes groaned. The walls shuddered. Dust poured from the ceiling like a waterfall of gray. "Run!" Alex bellowed. They sprinted just as a section of tunnel behind them collapsed in a deafening roar. Rock and beams slammed down, sealing the path with a wave of crushing stone. Ilasa screamed, not in fear, but in instinct, and clutched his hand even tighter. They burst into the ladder shaft, a vertical tunnel rising almost 100 meters above them, lit now by faint emergency glow strips that flickered like dying candle flames. Alex didn't hesitate. He grabbed the first rung and tested it. It creaked dangerously, but held. "I'll go first," he said. "If a rung breaks, I'll block your fall." Elasa nodded, eyes darting upward. "We must move quickly. The Dravari approach again." "Then we climb," Alex said, and he began. The ascent was brutal. Halfway up, one of the rungs snapped, sending Alex's boots slipping into open air. He caught himself with a grunt, arms screaming from the sudden strain. Elasa froze below him. "Alex!" "I'm fine," he shouted. "Keep climbing." She nodded, her pale green face tight with worry. They climbed higher, 50 meters, 60, 70. Sweat stung Alex's eyes. His hands burned. Below, the tunnel trembled again, dust drifting upward like gray snow. Elasa gasped. "They are beneath us, 3 mines, very close." "How close?" "Close enough to hear our climb." Alex bit out a curse and forced himself upward faster. His muscles protested, but adrenaline pushed him on. At last he reached the hatch, a heavy, rusted plate blocking the exit. He shoved. It didn't budge. He shoved again, harder. Nothing. Elasa reached his side, trembling from exertion. "Alex?" He braced his shoulders against the hatch and pushed with everything he had. With a screech of ancient metal, the hatch tore open, letting a rush of cool night air flood into the shaft. Alex hauled himself up, then reached down and pulled Elasa through. As soon as she cleared the opening, a massive tremor shook the ground. The ladder beneath them groaned. "Move!" Alex yelled. They sprinted away from the hatch, and just as they cleared the immediate area, the ground behind them collapsed. The entire shaft caved in, sending a roar through the forest as dirt and stone crashed inward. A plume of dust exploded upward, filling the clearing with choking gray fog. Elasa wheezed, clutching her chest. "The other mines, I no longer sense them." Alex swallowed hard, either buried or regrouping somewhere else. She touched her collar, the lights now flickering erratically. "We cannot assume they are gone." "No," Alex said, pulling her gently, "but we have a head start. Let's keep moving." The forest night wrapped around them as they trudged through dense underbrush. Elasa leaned slightly against Alex, her body trembling with exhaustion from the climb and psychic strain. They moved at a steady pace, heading toward Alex's fallback shelter. After 20 minutes, they reached it. A reinforced hunting blind nestled between towering trees, nearly invisible from the outside. Alex unlocked the camouflage door and helped Elasa inside. The interior was tight but stocked. Emergency food, portable med kits, a small energy heater, and a comm unit linked only to local channels. "Sit," Alex said, guiding her to the cot. Elasa obeyed, breathing shallowly. Her hands shook as she touched the collar again. "The dampening is weakening." "That's good, right?" "It is dangerous," she whispered. "If it destabilizes, it may trigger its own security failsafe." Alex's stomach tightened. "Meaning, it may kill me." He knelt in front of her immediately. No, we're not letting that happen. We'll get it off. We just need someone who knows alien tech." "The settlement's engineer," she whispered. "You mentioned him. Holt?" Alex nodded. "Yeah, ex-military. Runs a scrapyard. He might know enough tech to disable a collar without blowing up the wearer." She looked up slowly, and in her amber eyes he saw something that pierced his heart. Hope mixed with terror. "Alex, I trust you." He squeezed her hands. "Good, because I'm not losing you." Before she could answer, the comm unit crackled to life. Alex rose instantly and adjusted the frequency. Static. Then, unregistered landing detected. Unknown diplomatic vessel. No response on open channels. Elasa sat up straighter, eyes wide. A diplomatic vessel? Describe it, the comm continued. Silver hull, organic curvature, luminous engines, refusing to identify. Elasa's breath caught. Lumidari. Alex turned to her sharply. Your people? She nodded quickly. They must have detected an emergency trigger, perhaps when I accessed the collar's data. Her voice softened. They came for me. Alex allowed himself one moment of relief. Then the comm crackled again. Militia, mobilizing to investigate. Dravari signals detected on long-range scan. Elasa's relief vanished, like a snuffed flame. The Dravari are coming too. Alex grabbed his pack. Then we move. Now. Elasa pressed a hand to her temple. Wait, I sense something familiar. Familiar how? Alex demanded. A mind. Her voice trembled. My father's chief security officer. He is searching for me. He's close? Alex asked. Yes, she whispered. Much closer than the landing site. Alex didn't waste a second. Then let's go meet them. Before they could leave, the collar around her neck emitted a piercing whine. Elasa cried out, collapsing to her knees. Elasa! Alex grabbed her, lowering her gently. What's happening? Security. Protocol, she gasped. The collar detected telepathic contact. Alex lifted her. We're getting it off, right now. They burst out of the blind and into the forest night, just as three tall, green-skinned figures stepped out of the shadows ahead of them, their armor glowing faintly. Elasa's breath shuddered. They found us. And behind them, the night sky lit with the arrival of Dravari ships. The final confrontation was coming. For a moment, Alex couldn't move. The three figures emerging from the tree line moved with an otherworldly certainty, tall, lithe, armored in material that looked grown rather than forged. Their pale green skin was almost luminescent under the moonlight, reflecting its glow in soft waves. Their armor seemed to absorb light instead of bouncing it, giving them a ghostly silhouette as they approached. The leader stepped forward. He was taller than the others, his posture straight and regal, amber eyes sharp with intelligence. When he saw Elasa, something softened in his expression. Relief, urgency, and something akin to protectiveness flashing in quick succession. Elasa Vashari, he spoke in Lumidari, voice low and melodic. Elasa sagged forward, breath trembling. Cyril, you came. The leader, Cyril Vashari, her father's chief security officer, bowed his head slightly. We received your distress echo. We have been searching for 2 days. But then his eyes flicked to Alex, and the warmth vanished. A warrior's caution replaced it. You are the human who took her from the slave merchant, Cyril said in accented standard. Alex squared his shoulders. I'm the human who got her out alive. Cyril studied him for a long, silent moment. Then he nodded once. We owe you gratitude. But the moment fractured as the collar around Elasa's neck emitted another shrill whine. She dropped to her knees with a cry, clutching at the metal band as lights flashed erratically. Get it? Cyril didn't waste time. He knelt, produced a small crystalline device, and pressed it against the collar. The device pulsed with soft blue light, matching the rhythm of Elasa's breathing. Seconds passed, too slow. The whining intensified, lights flickering faster. Fear surged through her bond with Alex. Hurry, Alex growled. Cyril's expression tightened as he adjusted the device. The Dravari installed several lethal fail-safes. If we disrupt the wrong sequence, then don't disrupt the wrong one, Alex snapped. Another pulse, a harsher whine, then click. The collar split open, falling to the forest floor. Elasa gasped as if a weight had been torn from her soul, her hand flying to her bare throat. I can breathe, she whispered, tears forming. I can feel everything. She reached out instinctively, and Alex caught her. Her body pressed into him, trembling. Relief poured through their bond like warm sunlight, but the moment shattered as the sky above the forest lit up with streaks of red. Cyril's head snapped up. The Dravari have found the distress beacon. They are deploying scouts. Alex cursed. How many? 3 ships, Sorel replied. Light assault craft, heavily armed. The trees began to rumble as the first Dravari vessel swept low overhead, its searchlights slicing through the forest like blades of white fire. The Lumidari warriors moved instantly, reaching into their armor to activate small silver discs. They tossed them into the clearing. The discs struck the ground and erupted into shimmering domes of pale light. A force field spread outward, forming a translucent barrier that crackled with energy as the Dravari craft opened fire. The impacts jolted the air, sending tremors through the ground. Sorel turned sharply to Alex. We must reach the vessel, now. Where is it? Alex shouted over the thunder of artillery. 1 kilometer east, Sorel said. But the Dravari will attempt to encircle us. They will not let us reach it easily. Alex didn't hesitate. Then let's make them regret trying. Ilasa grabbed his hand, her eyes, glowing with full Lumidari power now that the collar was gone, held a fierce resolve. My abilities have returned, she said. I can shield us from detection. Briefly. Then it's enough, Alex said. Stay close. The Lumidari force field flickered violently behind them as the Dravari continued pounding it with plasma strafes. Sorel barked a Lumidari command and the group moved, silent, fluid, disciplined. Alex wasn't nearly as graceful, but he was fast, and he had something Dravari elites had never learned to predict. Human stubbornness. Pushing through thick underbrush, they fled deeper into the forest. Behind them, the barrier finally gave way with a crackling explosion. The Dravari soldiers poured into the tree line. Blasters lit up the darkness. One bolt struck a tree trunk beside Alex, blasting it apart in a shower of sparks. He shielded Ilasa instinctively, even as she reached into his mind through the bond. Left! Move left! Alex darted left, just in time to avoid a second blast. The incoming attack seared into the dirt where he'd been standing. You're reading them? He asked breathlessly. Reading you, she corrected. Your instincts, they resonate strongly. He didn't have time to process the warmth that surged in his chest. The Lumidari leader gestured sharply, guiding them toward rising terrain. We are close. But the Dravari were closing in too. Alex could hear their footfalls, too coordinated, too synchronized to be anything but elite soldiers bred for pursuit. One blurred figure broke through the brush, lunging forward with a Vero blade drawn. Alex barely had time to deflect the strike with a stolen energy pistol. The two locked eyes. Another shadow hunter. Alex's breath caught. Human, the Dravari hissed. You continue to interfere. Get used to it, Alex snarled. The alien struck again, faster this time. Alex dodged, but the blade grazed his coat sleeve, slicing through fabric. He fired a quick stun burst. The Dravari dodged that too. Ilasa, go, Alex shouted. Get to the vessel. No, she cried. I won't leave you. Alex blocked another blow. You have to. The Alliance, your people, they need the information. She faltered, and in that split second, Alex knew she understood. Sorel grabbed her wrist. Ilasa, the human is right. Torn with anguish, she stared at Alex, eyes radiant with fear and love and something deeper. Do not die, she whispered. I don't plan to, he lied. And then she was gone, pulled through the trees by Sorel and the other Lumidari guards. Alex faced the shadow hunter alone. The Dravari lunged. Alex ducked under the strike, grabbed the alien's arm, twisted hard and slammed him into a tree trunk. The impact cracked bark. The Dravari snarled, driving a knee into Alex's ribs. Pain lanced through him. He countered with a headbutt. It staggered the alien, but not enough. The Dravari advanced again. A roar split the air above them. Lumidari, vessel, engines. The ship's silhouette glowed between the trees, sleek, luminous, impossibly beautiful, like something carved from starlight and living metal. The ramp extended, light spilling outward as Ilasa turned back, reaching toward Alex. Alex! He sprinted. Branches whipped his face. Plasma blasts scorched the trees around him. A Dravari bolt struck the ground at his right, sending him stumbling. He pushed harder. Elasa reached her hand out desperately. Alex, please! He leaped. Sorel and another Lumidari soldier grabbed him midair, hauling him onto the ramp just as the Dravari fired a volley upward. The ship lifted, engines screaming as it rose above the treetops. Plasma shots struck its shields, flashing harmlessly across its hull. Inside, Alex collapsed to his knees, breath ragged. Elasa was already there, throwing her arms around him with a sob of relief. "You came back," she whispered, voice breaking. He held her tightly. "I told you, I'm not losing you." She buried her face in his chest, trembling. Sorel approached them. "Your bravery has altered the course of more than you know, human. The data Elasa carries could prevent war between our peoples." Alex nodded, still catching his breath. "Then let's make sure it gets to the right hands." Sorel inclined his head. "You will be honored as an ally of the Lumidari." Alex looked at Elasa, her fingers intertwined with his. "Come with us," she whispered. "Where I go, you belong." He exhaled softly. "My world," he said, brushing his forehead against hers, "is wherever you are now." The ship pierced the clouds, soaring into the open stars. Below them, the forest shrank into a dark quilt of shadows. Dravari's ships dwindled behind them, their lights fading against the vastness of space. Ahead stretched the stars, an infinite expanse of possibilities. Alex Hudson, once a solitary lumberjack on a forgotten world, now stepped into a future he'd never imagined. Not alone, never alone again.